Hello, this is Daniel and I'm going electric for the average person. Come along for today's ride where I drive from Manitoba in central Canada out to Vancouver and British Columbia in the far west. Let's see how hard or how easy it is to drive across Canada in a Tesla Model Y. Before you can drive across Canada, you actually have to get into Canada if you're not a Canadian citizen. We are still in the middle of a global pandemic as of the filming of this video, so there are a couple considerations if you want to come visit. Number one, like always, you have to bring your passport. Number two, you need to make sure that you have your vaccination card with you. Number three, you need to take a COVID test and it has to be negative no farther than 72 hours out from the time that you arrive. You cannot take an antigen test. They do not work. Do not take one. I will add the URL to the Canadian COVID testing website and you can see the list of all of the tests that you can take. It's basically every test except an antigen test. And then lastly, and most importantly, you need to download the Arrive Can app. That is the Canadian government app that you need to upload your vaccination card and also your ID into, and it will generate a security code that you will present to the Border Patrol agent when you cross the border. Don't be me. I didn't know anything about it, so I was declined entry into Canada at first. I had to return to the United States side of the border, download the app, upload all my data, and then try crossing the border, which eventually was a success. Now let's talk about charging. My route across central and western Canada is going to be 2,083 miles, which works out to 3,352 kilometers. And it's going to take me from the border of North Dakota up to Winnipeg and Manitoba, then over to Saskatchewan to Regina and Saskatoon. And then I'm going to head down to Alberta, into Calgary, up to Edmonton, over to Banff, and then cross into British Columbia and end up in Vancouver, and then finally make my way back down to the United States. There are three primary ways that you can charge across Canada. The number one and easiest way is the supercharger network. I'm going to put a map up here and you can see that there are superchargers all across Canada now. Little caveat though, all of these red dots look great at the high level, but you really need to zoom in and make sure that those dots are not just planned superchargers, but are in fact functioning superchargers. There are still parts of Canada where they are planning to allow supercharging, but it's not available right now. So if you're gonna go on one of those routes, you better check it out before you get on the road. Another great option is destination chargers. And for those of you who haven't bought into the Tesla universe yet and are unfamiliar with the term destination charger, a destination charger is what its name implies. It's a charger at your destination. But it is a term that is used at least by Tesla. If you go to their Tesla.com website and go to where the superchargers are listed, you can also click a little button that will tell you where all the destination chargers are. And usually those are hotels or parks or parking lots or government agencies where they would have a charger that specifically has the Tesla adapter on it versus all of the other adapters that non-Teslas use. Very convenient. So if you're driving around and you're just looking for a hotel and you don't want to spend too much time thinking, you look at the Tesla website, look at the destination chargers, and then you go to your favorite hotel app, compare prices, and then you select the hotel based on where there's going to be charging. It's very convenient. You show up, your battery's down, and instead of having to go to a supercharger that may or may not be in town, but if it is in town, it may be somewhere on the other side of town, because usually there's just one in these mid-sized cities, or they're kind of outside downtown. So you just go to the hotel, you plug in, you sleep, you wake up, your car's charged, and then you get back on the road. It's super, super convenient. A lot of these destination chargers, in addition to the Tesla adapter that they've got, they'll almost always also have the J1772 standard, and Teslas come standard with that adapter in it. So it's very convenient. It turns out that there may only be one Tesla charger adapter at the hotel, and you may have 2 or 3 Teslas staying there that night, and you're kind of SOL because you want to charge, but there's a Tesla already sitting there. So what do? All you do is you take out your adapter, you plug it into the J1772, and then you plug in your car. It's super convenient. A little heads up though, bizarrely, the J1772 adapter that I got when I picked up my car a year ago, like 4 or 5 months ago, I don't know what happened. It seems like it shrank. It no longer fits any of the J1772 chargers that I have been coming across for the past couple months. It's really weird. beware. On occasion, you're going to find that this whole charging world is still a little like wacky, and the standards are not totally there, and the interoperability of all of the adapters and dongles and charge standards and everything, they don't always work. Great news. I was able to go to the Tesla Service Center here in Calgary and swap out my defective J1772 adapter for a brand new one. This means that I'll be ready to go up into the Rockies, where superchargers are about as scarce as hen's teeth. And finally, another way that Tesla owners will charge their car, especially if they get really far off that supercharger network and even far away from those destination chargers in J1772s that are actually everywhere. The deal is you just have to make sure your adapter fits and mine doesn't, and that you have the right account set up and you can find them and that they actually work, because sometimes they don't. But if you want to get really far out into the sticks, you should get a NEMA 1450 adapter, or to a lesser degree, a NEMA 1430 adapter. These are the 240 volt adapters that you might use if you even have an at-home charger in your garage, or if you have an electric range or an electric dryer. They are also primarily used at campgrounds and RV parks, where you would find a post with a number of electrical outlets on it that would have different voltages and then different adapters, and then you just have to make sure you have the right adapter for your Tesla and then you plug into the right one. These NEMA 1450 and NEMA 1430 adapters are a really great option, especially if you want to push the range and distance of your electric driving lifestyle. Now that we've talked about how to get into Canada and then how to charge all across Canada, while I sit here in my car waiting for a ferry between Victoria and Vancouver, I'm going to talk about the drive across Canada. How was it? And I'm going to discuss that in two separate parts. The first part is going to be the prairie drive, and then the second part is going to be from Edmonton into the Rockies out to Vancouver and Victoria. Driving across the prairies and the Great Plains is about as easy as it can possibly get. It's flat for 1,000,000 miles, and the weather was sunny and lovely. Other than that, I crossed the North Dakota border, went straight up to Winnipeg, took the Trans-Canada Highway out to Regina, supercharged between Regina and Saskatoon, and then arced back down to the Trans-Canada Highway 1 toward Calgary, and then headed straight up to Edmonton. And that was it. There were superchargers and destination hotel chargers everywhere. It was literally about as easy as it can possibly be. Interestingly, a number of Canadians did stop in their trucks and cars to talk to me about my Tesla while I was out supercharging across the country. And they were all very curious about it. But the one question every Canadian seemed to have was, well, what about during the dead of winter when it's minus 20 and minus 30? What's your range? The reality is I have not driven across Canada in those conditions, although I have talked to people in the upper plains in the United States who do, and they have mentioned that on those worst, coldest, snowy days, you're likely going to get a 50% reduction in range compared to Tesla's EPA advertised number of 326 miles or 525 kilometers. Now, I tend to think that those EPA numbers are pretty much fantasy to begin with, because you can only really get them if you drive 55 miles an hour at a steady speed on a nice day in pleasant weather with no crosswinds or heavy rain or snow. Most people are looking closer to the 200 to 250 mile range, depending on your speed, from like 65 up to 75, 80. So if you're getting into winter, you're going to have another 10 or 15% off of that. Just keep that in mind. If you look at that Tesla map, though, all of the superchargers are between 70 and 120 miles from each other. So you should be able to cross the country with no problem. But do charge up on those really cold days and make sure you have a little extra electricity in your battery in case there's a road detour, or you need to sit in traffic, or something happens, or the weather's just so bad that you can't move forward until it gets cleared. Prepare, and with a little preparation, you'll be able to drive anywhere you want. So now I'm starting the second half of the trip, which is from Edmonton up into the Rockies down to Vancouver. This part of the trip, there are no superchargers. I am at the last supercharger along my route for the next couple days, and that's going to be Edmonton through Edson, which is where I'm supercharging. And then I'm going to go up to Jasper, Lake Louise, and then down to Banff. there are only destination chargers along the way. Tesla has no supercharger. So I had to go through, look at all the destination charger sites. I looked at various apps about where various J1772 chargers are. I made my hotel reservations, and this is the first time on my whole trip around North America over the past, 32,000 miles, 52,000 kilometers, that I have gone such a stretch without superchargers. Let's get in the car and see how it works out. So I made it into the Rockies. That's good news. The bad news is that there are 2 slow chargers at my hotel, and they're both taken. I kindly left a sweet note on the windshields of both cars saying, please call me or text me. I'm desperate for electricity when they're done. We'll see. There are a couple other little slow chargers in town at the train station. So I just drove downtown, plugged in. It was awesome. I plug in and it's 5 kilowatts. And for those of you who have not bought electric cars yet, I will just tell you that's barely better than home charging on 120 volts, like in your bathroom. So it's going to take me a long time to charge here. Now I am going to take you to the Tesla supercharger station that they have just installed. I drove by it and was like, what the heck is this? But it's not plugged in. Tesla, do us a favor. The day that you install the superchargers, just plug them in. It's that easy. You just plug them in and turn them on. And for those of you who end up not buying a Tesla, but buy some competitor's car instead, I'm starting to see a whole bunch of these big blue box flow chargers. These are DC fast chargers being installed all across Alberta. This one happens to be right at the Tesla supercharger station as well. Looks like a double installation. The adapter wand here is going to be the CCS Combo 2 as well as the Chatamo standard. Very convenient. I maybe showed up a month or 2 early for driving an electric car across the Rockies, but they're installing it, and hopefully you'll be able to get from Edmonton all the way down to Vancouver through the northern route of the Rockies within the next couple of months. Great news. I left that very friendly note on the windshields of the Tesla and the Audi e-tron, and I was having dinner downtown in Jasper, and the owner of the Audi e-tron, a super cool dude from Quebec, texted me. I was like, hey, I'm going to be done charging my car around 10 p.m. if you want to come to the back of the hotel and swap out. So he texted me at 10 o'clock, said he was ready to swap out, and here I am. We talked about his Audi, we talked about my Tesla, we talked about what we liked about each cars and what we didn't like about each cars. Thanks, Quebec. Thanks, cool dude. Thanks, Audi e-tron owners. You're awesome. Okay, things are getting weird. I plugged in my car to that J1772 charger with the Tesla adapter. I plugged it in and I set my car to finish charging by 9 a.m. in the morning. Then all of a sudden, I heard this and then suddenly I got this message on my dash in the car that said, charging error, see manufacturer's device for error code, which was weird. And then I went to the charger on the wall and it was like flashing red. And then I went to the hotel lobby and was like, hey guys, do you think you could like send out the maintenance crew and just have them turn off the charger and have them reset it? I never saw the guy from maintenance come, but I ended up coming back to the back of the hotel and thought, well, let me just try this one more time and see if it works. And I plugged it in and everything's working now. We'll see. I'm going to be up for the next couple hours and see if it charges, and hopefully it does. Good morning. I'm happy to report that after a night of drama with charging, that everything ended well. I've got a 92% charge in the battery, which is what I capped it out last night. And I've also preconditioned the interior on this cold, freezing morning. And now it's time for me to get on the road and drive through the Rockies. So the route from Jasper down to Banff was down Alberta 93, also known as the Icefields Parkway, apparently. And then that runs into Trans-Canada Highway 1, takes you into Banff. And then on the way out, I had to go up to Castle Mountain because Trans-Canada Highway 1 over the Rockies is currently closed. And then I took BC 93, if that's what it's called, British Columbia Highway 93. And that took me into Golden, where I supercharged at a really fast supercharger. I was very impressed. And then I looped down through the Glacier National Park, and you've also got the Glacier National Park on the Montana side, super cool on both sides. And then into Kamloops, and then I took BC 5, Highway 5, through Hope, where I supercharged, really cute town, into Vancouver, and then the ferry over the strait into Vancouver Island, Victoria, and then back to Vancouver and into the United States. The drive through the Canadian Rockies was spectacular. It's gorgeous. It's amazing. It'll blow you away. I encourage all of you to do that drive. If you drive an EV, you can do it. If you drive a Tesla Model Y, you can do it. You're going to have to do a little bit of planning, and we'll talk about that just because the charger network is still a little iffy up there, but you can totally do it. And as you saw in the previous clip, they're opening up a supercharger and DC fast charger soon. So it's going to be open for everyone. I made a video of the drive through the Rockies in 4K. It's episode 35, 7 Minutes in Heaven. Check it out. I'll link to it at the end of this video and also put the link in the video description below. Now to the meat and potatoes of the drive, range and efficiency. The distance between Jasper and Lake Louise was 160 miles or 270 kilometers, and the efficiency I got out of the car was 266 watt hours per mile or 165 watt hours per kilometer. Now I'm going to let you know, I was driving 10 to 20 kilometers an hour less than the posted speed, which works out to about 6 to 12 miles per hour. And the reason I did that for about a good half of that drive was because I was really pushing how far this car could go on a charge, and I wasn't sure if the weather was going to change. I wasn't sure if wind was going to hit my car and if my range was going to go down. So I was going relatively slow. If you were going posted or even faster, your range numbers are going to be less. Pro tip for this route, charge your car to 100% before you get on the road. Now, when I was planning the trip, it looked like you cannot do the full drive from Jasper down to Banff on a single charge unless maybe you're super hypermiling. Because of that, I booked a hotel in Lake Loraine, and there's actually a public charger just off the highway as you get into Lake Loraine. It's pretty convenient. It's on the slower side, so you're gonna have to give yourself a couple hours to charge back up. Another pro tip is always remember that if your battery is charged to 100%, which is about 72 kilowatt hours of energy, you're only working with the equivalent of 2.1 gallons of gasoline or 8 liters of gasoline. That is not a lot. Everywhere you go takes energy to get to. Make sure that you are planning to have enough energy along your route to get where you want to go. Or if you go really far off the route and you come back to the highway, you have to make it all the way down to at least Lake Loraine to get some juice. There's nothing in between. So plan appropriately. The drive from Banff over the Rockies into Vancouver was fine. There were superchargers along the whole route. The weather was bad though. Getting up the east side of the Rockies, there was ice all over the road. It was snowing. Cars were slipping. I was slipping. I saw a semi flipped over on the side of the highway. It was pretty nasty. The efficiency though was interesting. I was probably driving like 25 to 30 miles an hour, which probably had me around 45, 50 kilometers an hour. It was slow going. I was getting the range as if I were driving 75 miles per hour, 120, 130 on a good day. So the efficiency was fine. I could get over the mountains. It was just slow, slow, slow. And finally, the concluding part of my grand tour around Canada had me taking the ferry from Vancouver over to Vancouver Island and then supercharged my car in the one supercharger on the island and did a nice long drive up to Juan de Fuca Provincial Park, Port Renfrew, farther north into Lake Cowichan, and over to Duncan and back into Victoria with the ferry ride back to the mainland. It was lovely. It rained a lot, and so I'm going to mention something about rain. I've talked about weather a lot through this video. You don't have to worry about rain torching your battery or your efficiency if the rain is light or even moderate. So drive around, you'll be totally fine. Where you start seeing a hit on your efficiency and your range is when the water starts pooling up on the road and when you start hearing it hit the inside of your wheel well. That's when your car is forced to start plowing through all that water. When you get to that point, you're going to start seeing a 15 to 30% reduction in your efficiency and range. I mention this because as long as you're supercharging and keeping that battery well charged and you're planning out your route, you're going to be totally fine. So that was my amazing adventure around Canada. I'd like to thank the Canadian government for letting me in as an American tourist. Thank you. And if you have any comments or questions about this trip, please feel free to leave any comments in the comment section below. I reply to everybody. It's always great hearing from you, and I hope you enjoyed the journey. See you next time, and take care.